This is the 20th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another second edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. We have a champion in studio. We have a lot of in-studio guests this week. We got, just a quick recap, we got Matt Steffen. He just left Wisconsin. He's coming into town. We're doing evening shows Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But obviously, if you just know, I did a show on Friday when I got back. The 2024 Bass Nation Championship on Grand Lake, the long-awaited tournament. A lot of guys in the area have been looking forward to it. And there are a handful of anglers that qualified for that event who were favorites. Most of them made the final day, including the gentleman across from me, Blake CAPPS, who grinded it out. Congratulations. You got the win. You got the classic spot. You got the 50 grand. You got the invite to the Elite Series. You got multiple trophies that we have here. And I said, man, I want to get you on the show. And you said, well, I can come in studio. And I said, well, hell yeah, that's a bonus for me. So congratulations, man.
Heck yeah. Thank you, Matt. And I appreciate you having me on.
A little closer to the mic there.
Thank you, Matt.
You can pull that closer.
Okay.
That whole arm moves.
Right,
so
yeah,
now? We're good. I just want to make sure since
right.
It goes on iTunes. But yeah, dude. So it's had to have been an absolute whirlwind of a week for you.
Oh man, it don't even seem real right now. It's the overwhelming support of people have reached out and talked to me and congratulate me. People I didn't even know had my phone number reaching out. Man, I'm still really in shock about the whole situation.
Talk about the week as a whole. So it was a weird deal. Practice started on last Saturday.
Yes.
It was a Saturday, Sunday, Monday practice. Tuesday was an off day. The tournament was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We had 9 inches of rain and 25-mile-an-hour winds for 2 of the 3 days of practice and the off day.
Yep. And so Saturday was really our only good day of fishing. And I was actually in a wedding Saturday. So, and I already committed to the wedding that I was going to be one of the best man and whatever. But
you're the best man in the
no,
wedding.
I wasn't the best man. I
okay.
was one of the groomsmen. But anyways, I only got to fish for about 2.5 hours on Saturday, and then of course, and I actually had a decent day Saturday in those 2 hours. And anyways, then of course on Sunday and the next 2 days of practice, that rain, it was absolutely crazy. The storm still went out there, of course, and tried not to get struck by lightning and all the. I don't know exactly how much rain we got in those 2 days, but it was a lot. I think the lake came up over 1.5 feet and dirtied up and in a lot of places, and I think that actually was a big benefit for me being a local in the tournament, knowing. Seeing Grand Lake do stuff like that where it's coming up and changing conditions and stuff.
Did you know going into it that you were going to have a shot at this thing? Like, I mean, was it one of those tournaments where it felt right? Was it one of those where you're surprised to be where you are?
Yes and no. I started like the first day of practice. I had a big bite on a spinnerbait in practice on day one, and then kind of that was about it. And then on day 2, I got another big bite on a spinnerbait. But catching 5 was so hard for me. And I kept telling myself, I can just commit to a spinnerbait or a chatterbait and just lock in my hand. I think I would have a shot at doing well. The problem was I didn't know if I could catch 5 fish a day. Mm-hmm. And that was the honest to God truth. Every day it was a grind. Every day I think I end up catching 8 keepers a day.
Oh, that's strong.
Yeah, well,
all power fishing. Like you didn't go minnowing, drop shotting, like no spinning rod, like 14, 15-inch spots. Like you stuck with the big stick.
I stuck with it. I had I think 5 rods on the deck. I had 2 spinnerbaits, a chatterbait, and a jig and some kind of topwater. But out of the 15 fish that I weighed in, I think one came on topwater and the other 14 came on some sort of spinnerbait.
Really? What made you throw the moving bait and not slow down in like a jig or a big brush hog or something behind those docks? Because that's what I did, which clearly kind of worked. Not good enough to have the trophy on this side of the desk, but I thought that was like a baller move when I figured it out. I was like, dang, like never even occurred to me to put a spinnerbait back there.
Yeah, and I think I could have caught some of the same fish flipping that I caught on a spinnerbait, but my problem is I was going so far in between docks without a bite, and it was just a bait that I was able to cover a lot more water. And coming into the tournament, I thought being 4 regionals, 20 boats from each regional, I was under the impression that there was only going to be 80 boats in this tournament. I was 80 boats on Grand Lake. That's great, man. We're gonna have the whole lake to ourselves.
Never see another boat the whole day,
right? And I was excited about that. I rolled into practice on day 1. I said, man, is there a big tournament going on or something that I didn't know about? I get to call around some buddies. Like, no, there's around 250 boats in this thing. So that really kind of changed things up anyways for me. But where I was going with that is you'd go down a stretch of docks and almost every person that I've seen was up there flipping boat docks or throwing behind it. And I think me taking a spinnerbait was just something that was giving me a little bit of an edge, where there were just so many people throwing flipping behind them or throwing a chatterbait or something like that. But if you're ever trying to throw a spinnerbait behind boat docks, it is not an easy task to do either.
I've got out in the living room, I've got the Ken Cook spinnerbait. I mean, that's an Oklahoma legend. And then I've also got, I was just thinking, like, that's a cool, well, I got a bunch of other stuff here. But like that's the OG Jimmy Houston spinnerbait right there.
Silicone
like
skirt
those with the silicone.
Yeah.
And then obviously Jason Christie talked at the meeting beforehand. We've seen what he's done with the spinnerbait. How cool was it to go out and like win a national event on Grand Lake in Oklahoma on a freaking spinnerbait?
Oh, that's awesome too, because I mean, if people think of Oklahoma who've never fished Oklahoma, everyone knows the spinnerbait is a staple.
You can't keep those, by the way. I need those back. Those are one of one.
Yeah, one of one.
Maynard, I think Maynard sent me a couple of those. A retired teacher. I haven't talked to Maynard in a while.
Yeah, those are awesome.
Anyway,
there.
But yeah, back to the blade.
Yes, spinnerbait is a staple in Oklahoma, and it's really this day and age, it's getting to where it's a throwback bait. You just don't hear about it as much. It's not the cool bait like it used to be. There's so many other techniques that people are doing now, and I in a way, there's less people doing it. And I mean, I really think the spinnerbait's making a comeback.
Are you cool like going through your spinnerbait details, like exactly what spinnerbait it was, blade combinations, colors, trailers, that whole 9 yards?
Yeah, I don't mind. I had 2 spinnerbaits on. I had a Booyah covert on. But both of them were 3/4 ounce.
So big.
They were big ones, yeah, with big willows. I had one with a big willow and one with a little kicker Colorado. And then I had just another one with just a double willow.
That right there, that's my Grand Lake spinnerbait right there. That's the 1/2 ounce, but the exact same thing in a 3/4 ounce.
And
is what I usually throw.
The exact color and everything right there.
Spot remover.
Yeah. Huh. So just a little chartreuse and white. But like I don't know if the color was too much of the deal. I think it was just getting the bait back there. Some of those fish, they were, the second you would, you throw behind a cable or float or whatever. Second I had that reel flipped over, I'd make one crank and they were there.
You were putting a bait that not many other people were throwing in a spot that not many other people could put it in. And the guys that were putting in it were putting a bait that basically went to the bottom. So if they didn't hit it, this was giving them a little bit more time. You think that was the difference?
Yeah. And I do think a lot of those fish were setting right underneath the floats, just because there was a few on day 1, my biggest fish, when I made that cast and I flipped my reel over, it more or less boiled and was hitting my bait at the same time. I don't know if I even cranked it. Yeah. And
that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So I was throwing a 1/2 ounce jig behind, and I love talking to people behind. Like, I don't think what a lot of people who don't tournament fish realize is, and I talk my girlfriend Courtney all the time, like she'll call me on the way home and I'll be like, sorry, I've been on the phone for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Now there's like events where you just want them to fill the thing in with cement, and you don't want that lake to exist, and you hope there's a fish kill and you never have to go back. But then there's other events where you're very curious. You want to know, like, what did I miss? Because you knew you were close to something. So it's cool. Like, I get to talk to you and hear it. And now that you're mentioning that, so Grand Lake has a lot of fixed floats, but it's also got fixed docks, but it's also got a lot of docks that have posts on it with floats on it, because it does fluctuate. And then a lot of times there's like a, what would you call the float before the dock? Like a base float or what?
Yeah, for the walkways.
Yeah, like a walkway float, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times I would skip my jig in, and I was watching it with scope, and I would see what I would consider a quality fish, shaped like a bass, respond like a bass, and it would peel off of the float and go down, but it would never eat it.
Yeah.
Those are fish that you were catching.
Absolutely, because in practice I did see that happen other times, and I do think a lot of that was a pure reaction bite too. Just everything was so fast. I know it was a reaction bite, but like what you've seen, you'd have some that would go down on it, and you'd wait for the bite or whatever, and it would just.
And I kept saying, well, maybe it's a drum, maybe it's buffalo, because I did snag a couple buffalo. I thought I was about to have a state record twice in the tournament, and they were buffalo, and I was like, I ended up dismissing it, right? Yeah. But that you were able to figure out how to trigger those, and it wasn't very many a day from what I read and saw.
It was if you was wanting to learn to go fishing, that's not the tournament to go learn to fish, because it's not a fun way to fish, because whoever builds Oklahoma docks on Grand Lake, I think their brother is the cable guy, because there's way too many cables on Grand Lake.
Right?
Yes, and you catch a fish, and actually I never lost a fish all week. I got every one of them out behind the cables, and everything went right, and that's very rare to be able to actually.
Line wise, were you throwing 20-pound string?
20-pound test,
and like a 7.4 heavy or.
No, I was actually throwing a Falcon head turner. It's a 6'11" heavy.
Short rod.
It's a little shorter, but it's just trying to get it up in there. I mean, it's getting a spinnerbait behind those stocks is so difficult.
Yeah.
It's not like a chatterbait for the most part that you can wind up and really skip
a lot of those casts, you had to have 2-3 cranks, and that's it.
That was it.
Like literally, like if you're looking at the docks, and I drew a diagram for Frank Scalish, where I was explaining how these cables work, but a lot of times by the time you get it in there and you engage the reel and it goes, I mean, it's 1 crank, 2 cranks, and then you've got to either get it up over the cable, or there's a cable in the water that's going to stop it.
Yep, 100%. You put it in there and you crank, and then you just pick your rod up and get it back out of there and keep on going. And you wouldn't even think you'd get a bite how fast some of those, you don't even feel like, but you just keep covering enough of them, then you get one. But like I said, the bites were very few far in between, but every time I'd get a bite, it seemed like they were quality. And so every time I slowed down to flip, I felt like I was getting behind. So I just kind of had to just keep on rolling. And everything trying to change throughout the tournament. I made the comment on stage. I felt like I covered more water than anyone else. Day one, my whole plan was to go down toward the dam, and I had a late boat draw and whatnot. And on the way down, I got a spot that I like to start on a lot of times outside of Horse. And man, there ain't no way there's not going to be a boat setting on it. And, 249. 49. Yeah, call it 250. Yeah. 250 boats on Grand Lake. And I'm running down the lake, and I just look over, and there's no one sitting on that spot. And I was like, well, let's go pull in there. And so I pulled over there, and this was on day one. I threw the topwater up there, and I caught a topwater fish.
Like a good one?
It was 2 1/4. It was a solid
good one.
Yeah, it was a solid keeper. It was a hectic. I mean, it was a good moment just to kind of calm the nerves a little bit too. And then I got to looking around, and everyone that I was seeing in that area, they were fishing off the bank. They were fishing brush piles, and they were dragging stuff. And in that area of the lake, I had no intentions to even fish. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, let's go fish. Having history on the lake, that's where I did have an advantage. And plus, practice was so hard to move around with all the storm and how windy it was. And so we had an off day in between, so kind of everything calmed down.
It was a fishing tournament when the first boat launched.
Yeah, absolutely. And so anyways, I ended up catching some fish in that general area, and I never even went down south to where I even planned on it. And then on day 2, I was like, well, I'm going to go back to that same area that I caught him on day 1 and try to do that again. That's when Grand Lake kicked in, and 11 o'clock came around, and I had 0 fish at 11 o'clock. So I had a decision to make. Do I stay in this area, or do I change it up? And that ended up kind of saving me. I stuck with it, but I changed areas again of the lake, and kind of just kept rolling with it from there. And I think I was doing at 3 o'clock that day, and I think it was right at 2:15. I ended up catching my 5th keeper. Then like 2:30, I ended up making I caught my best fish right before going to weigh in.
Right there in Wolf?
No, well, okay. Actually, so then on day 3,
we'll get to day 3.
Okay, we'll get to day 3.
A little bit about like the night of day 2.
Yeah. So that is I did run back into Wolf at like 2:30. I had like 30 minutes left, and I got in line of all the boat docks with everyone else, and I caught one of my best fish in there
on a spinnerbait.
Wow. Yeah. And so that sealed that deal. But day 2, that was definitely by far the hardest day of fishing that I had. But then on day 3, we started out, and so I had to change something. I went until 11 o'clock without having.
Well, I want to talk about the night of day 2 then.
Yeah.
So Bass needs to put the standings up here because they have it, but with the nation they like erase it. But you went like 14 something or 15 on day 1.
I think 15-2 on day 1.
You were in second place.
Second place, yes.
And then day 2 you went 14 or 12.
I think it was 12, 14, almost 13.
12, 14. That was when Will Davis, who is
yes.
the LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky of the Bass Nation, was
Absolutely.
looking for a three-peat, has won an Elite Series. I wanted him in the field. I had heard that they were like, hey, it was a rumor that they weren't going to let him fish this. And I was like, my God, you came in as a nation, guys. As long as you keep kicking everyone's butt, keep coming back every year. Like,
absolutely.
the defending champ needs to be in that tournament the following year.
Well, that's a rule change.
That's the Will Davis rule. You don't get to fish it next year?
I don't get to fish it next year.
You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
How do you not have a defending champion?
That's what we were talking about at the banquet that evening.
Okay, so that was it that he couldn't, but I wanted him there, but I was like, my God, he's gonna freaking three-peat.
Yeah.
Because, you look at what he's doing and you're like, okay, Alabama dude. I figured he was throwing a jig. I looked after I was eliminated, and I was like, oh, yeah, he's going to be tough to beat. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you knew he was skipping a jig. He knew what was up. It was a grinder. You had Biggs and Jones and did who else made it? Like a bunch of the other locals made it.
Yes.
The guys you expected to be fishing on the final day made it. And then you looked at how flippy or how flip-flopped the weights were.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, like it's going to be real hard to be consistent here.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk about, like, was there a moment after you weighed in where you knew you'd made the cut, where you knew like I read your article where you said like you've always wanted to be a professional fisherman,
yeah.
where you're like, dude, I've got 8 hours on my home lake, a lake that I've won over $100,000 on in the past couple years. I'm 5 bites away from the Bassmaster Classic that only 400 guys have ever crossed the stage, the Bassmaster Elite Series, where they just announced that there were no entry fees, $50,000 cash, and a major title on a lake to share that with guys like Edwin Evers and Jason Christie and all that, to like put your name in that kind of lore. Like, was there that moment? Like, what were the nerves like?
Oh, I mean, all that stuff, like, it's just incredible just to even think about.
Like, were you thinking about that stuff, or were you just like dialed in and were just like, oh, what? I'll just one more day.
No, I was trying not to think about it too much, but at the same time, I was thinking about the Classic. That was priority one, and I was thinking about it, but that was also motivation too. Really, on day 2 that night, I went home, got tackle ready, and I actually put more rods up. So like on the final day, I only had 4 rods out on the final day, and it's always good when you're going into a final day of a tournament with, not a full deck of rods, I feel like. But man, I went and I slept really good that night. I knew it was meant to be. We would I knew what I was doing. If I was to get 5 bites, I would be where I needed to be. And like I said, I was telling myself, stay calm, stay relaxed, and don't do nothing stupid. Like, don't
Like what could you have done that would be stupid? Like
Well,
in hindsight.
If I wasn't getting bites, I wasn't going to go run to the dam and
You just didn't. Yeah, you were like,
I wasn't going to go fish. I wasn't going to go pick a jig
up.
up and go throw it in brush piles and hope to catch a limit of spots or something like that. And which a lot of people, you hear people talking, hear about people going down to the dam throwing the drop shot and stuff around brush piles, and I was hearing all that stuff, and get to thinking about it, and especially on day 2 when it's 11 o'clock and I haven't had a keeper yet, and I'm like, do I go down south to try to, toward the dam and try to fill out a limit, or do I just try to commit with this? But growing up in Oklahoma too, I know, and fishing in November, and the lake coming up and all these other variables, they're feeding up on shad. Like it's been warm, but winter's coming regardless. And just being a staple in Oklahoma, the spinnerbait, topwater, that's the baits that you throw to win this time of year. And I'm really surprised that it wasn't one on a topwater, to be honest with you. I know I heard some rumors about people catching some big ones on a topwater, but that's something I couldn't get that going as well as I'd like to.
Did you get a bite early on day 3? Like, did you have something that settled you down where you were like, all right, here we go?
We took off at 6:30 and it was real cloudy that morning. Yeah. And really 6:30, it was almost too dark to even to take off. I mean, it was safe light, but it was dark out. And it's kind of weird. I don't know how to explain it, but I had one little stretch that I had some bites on day 2. I didn't want to fish it first thing because I didn't want it to be too dark. I don't know if that sounds, that I wanted the sun to come up a little bit. So I didn't fish that stretch. I went and fished some other things. And then I
like that dark where you kind of wish you'd tied on like a 10-inch blue fleck power worm for 10 minutes and just cast it around.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, you guess it. Yeah.
The whole Wednesday night special that you pull it out at like 9 and you're like, why are we waiting at 9:30?
Exactly.
Kind of dark.
Yeah. And it was windy and stuff. So I was like, well, I kind of want to give that some time. So I went and fished some other things. And at that point, it's like 8:30 or so. And I was like, all right, well, I still haven't had a bite. So I'm going to go check that one stretch. And where I had a couple bites out on day 2. And I went down it and I caught a keeper pretty much that first boat dock that I went to. And it was just a keeper, and that really settled me down. And then I didn't go 2 more boat docks, and I caught another one. So it's like, all right, so we got the ball rolling now. And then I went for probably 2 more hours without another bite.
Didn't freak out, though. It didn't bother you.
No, I mean, it didn't bother me. Just because I kept telling myself I didn't have a fish until after 11 o'clock yesterday, and I got 2 right now. And then once again, just kept moving. Like I've been saying, it was around 10:30-ish. I think it was right at 10:30. There was a little piece of brush on the side of a dock, and threw that spinnerbait right down the front side of it, or right down the side of it. And sure enough, one just locked it up. And I couldn't do nothing with it. It actually had me hung up in the brush for a second. And he ended up coming out of there, and it come up, and I could not believe it. Ended up being the biggest fish I had all week. And I normally don't weigh my fish. I probably should. I'm just one of those guys. I put them in there, and we'll see what they have. Sometimes I'm heavy, sometimes I'm light on. I kind of like the surprise too. But don't have stuff going. I had to weigh it, and it weighed 478 on my scale. So
that's a good one.
Yeah, so that was number 3, and that got me jacked. And I was like, all right, man, I have to finish out a limit. And then 10:30, there we go again. And I didn't get my next bite till 12. So right at midnight, right at noon, I had number 4. And then shortly after that, before 1 o'clock, I did catch my 5th keeper. But I still had 2 fish that I really needed to get rid of. They were just keepers. And actually made my buddy Chris Jones, we ran into each other, and was like, man, I gotta get one more.
Yeah, but he was not a happy camper.
Yeah, no, he was running around too like a madman. But
he intimidates the hell. He's a super nice guy, always been nice. But like,
yeah,
whenever Chris Jones is in the field and he's like, I mean, after day 2, like before I'd been eliminated, we both thought we might slide in. And he's like, he didn't think so. He's like, oh, I can't believe I've only got 8 pounds. He literally like held a 13 or 14-inch spotted bass up. And he's like, this doesn't make the final day. And I'm like, I think you're good. And he's like, I'd like one more crack at it, man. And
yeah.
I'm like, oh God, like that's going to be a man on a mission out there.
Oh yeah. Well, no, like we, me and him, we was eating dinner and stuff every night. Actually, he was mad. Or frustrated, whatever you want to call it. He already went back to the hotel, showered, and had his bags packed. He was going home, and then he said, heck, I might make it. And I was like, yeah, you're going to make it, man.
So anyway, you ran into him.
And I told him, I said, man, I need to call one more time. And I told him, so I'm about to get out of this area. So I made like a 15-minute run. And cause I was thinking in my head, this is where the local knowledge came in. I was thinking, man, every place I've ever caught a fish on Grand Lake, where could I go catch a 3-pounder at right now? And I had a couple areas that came to my mind. I was like, well, I got, they're kind of close. And I did catch a keeper in practice off one of these spots. It was just a keeper. But I was like, well, the way the wind is wrapping, it's not blowing directly on us. So let's go fish that. I have not fished it in the tournament. Like I said, I did fish it in practice. Ran over there, and there was one little like rock, or so to speak. There's a big rock, and then there's like a I don't know what it is. It's not a brush.
Don't give it away. You know to tell people
it's
where that
not.
rock
It's
on Grand is.
It's not a brush pile, but it's. I think it actually may be like an old, concrete for
concrete
old
block.
Yeah, but it's kind of by itself, whatever. And water's dirty and high, and you can't see it, but it's still shallow, and
that's a local special.
That's right, a local special. But normally it don't pan out. But I was sitting there, I was using my scope looking for it. I needed to make that exact cast, whatever, and I seen it, and I didn't see no fish on it because how this thing is, you can't really see much on it. And anyways, I threw that while I was driving to it, though. This kind of sounds goofy to say. Like I said, it made like a little over 10-15-minute run, and just for this spot. And I was pumping myself. I was like, man, you can do this. I get one more bite, we're gonna go to the Bass Master Class, because I knew I had 3 decent fish, or I had 1 kicker, and I was like, man, if I call one more time with a 3-pounder, I said, we're going to the Classic. And so I'm all pumped up. I keep telling myself I can do it, and I go up to that point, and sure enough, I see it on the scope, and I throw that spinnerbait up there, and didn't get to watch it or nothing, see it, make the cast, and, turn back to stay off of it. And as I came across that spinnerbait went complete slacklined on me, and I set the hook on it, and I said, man, this is the Classic right here. And I pretty much boat flipped every fish I boat flipped 13 of the 15, and that one came up, and it just barely had that spinnerbait in the side of the mouth. I was like, oh my gosh. And
trailer hook on it?
No trailer hook, but I had a full size swim bait on the back of it. So, and
slow it down a little.
And then on top of that I did have a trailer hook in practice, and I just was hung up that much more. So
you belly landed that sucker.
How
big was that?
It was a 3 1/4.
Dude, you needed pretty much every ounce that you had too, because Connor Jacob didn't really let up.
It gets even better.
Okay,
it gets better.
Okay,
so land that fish, and I'm freaking pumped. I was like, man, I think we're gonna make the Classic. Like, it's gonna be very close at this point. And that was about a pound upgrade, because I had 2 fish that I really need to get rid of. They were just 2-pounders, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. And it's like, all right, that was we were doing it 2:30. That was at 2:10 when I caught that fish. And so no, it was like 2:05.
Dude, you're not even in the Classic before that fish.
You're
like 4th or 5th place.
It would have been borderline. I've been the first guy out, and I know all about being the first guy out of a big tournament. Yeah. What we talked about earlier, but so anyways, so it was like 2:05-ish, and so I fished the next spot. I didn't get a bite. It's like, all right, well, we're gonna go back to Wolf, and I'm gonna go fish the dock where I caught a fish at on day 2, right before weigh-in. And there's a stretch of docks, and I was trying to figure out which dock I was wanting to go to, because I knew I wasn't going to have that many casts to make or whatever. I didn't have time to fish all of them, of course. which one do I want to go to? So I run into Wolf at, it said doing it 2:30, and by this time it's 2:20-ish. So I got 10 minutes left. Well, the dock I said, I'm going to go to this dock. Well, I come into Wolf. There's a boat setting on it. Go figure. And then there's another boat setting on the other one. So, well, I guess I'm going to that one. And it's just crazy how things work. I haven't missed a fish all week. And there was a brush pile sitting in front of the boat dock. And so anyway, I get there and, I got less than 10 minutes before I got to check in. And I throw into this brush pile. This was a brush pile, not on the dock, but throw that spinnerbait up there, and one comes out and just absolutely just slams it and knocks slack in my line. And I missed it, and I'm jumping up and down mad, and my spinnerbait's all over my line and all that. Everything just fouled up. So I fixed it all up, and I made another cast. And I winded up there, and I scoped over there to it, and that sucker came from the very bottom of this brush pile and shot straight up to it. Like I've seen 100 times. And I was just waiting on it to lock up, and it turned and went back down. I said, oh my goodness. I still got one just keeper, and I cast around, can't do nothing, or can't get a bite.
You've got 5 minutes left.
Yeah, 5 minutes left. And so I get right up on that pile, of course, just trying any little thing I can. I said, all right, well, last cast. And so I went ahead and threw down the side of this boat dock. I ain't caught a fish on this boat on the side of it or nothing. And there's a little piece of brush there. You can see the rope hanging off of it, and throw that spinnerbait down the side of it. So, well, last cast, here we go, and throw it up there and hit that brush pile, and then that brush pile hits me again, and then the light bulb went off that was a fish, and then I set the hook, and that sucker comes straight up at me and jumps. It's a 3-pounder. I said, no way.
That was the win. Like, it would have been like within ounces either way. Because how much you win by less than a pound, right?
14 ounces.
And you had and that was a 3, and you had one roughly around 2?
Yeah. And I reel it in and boat flip it, put it in the box, dude. And I went and called that one fish out, pulled the trolling motor up and went to weigh. And I have not made another cast on Grand Lake since that fish. My very last cast 100% put me in the classic, but put me in the elites too. And it's when they say it's meant to be and it's your time, like that right there was just.
Were you like shaking?
Oh yeah, I couldn't like it went from like, all right, we may be in the classic to, dude, we may win this thing.
Yeah, we're in it.
Yeah,
I'm showing I just added it up on here. Your dad's here. Obviously, your brother Jake fishes a lot too. Talk a little bit about what it was like. I mean, you look at that final day weigh-in, they had signs for you and stuff. You're there on Gray, and to have your family there to be able to see it, to be able to celebrate with them after Will Davis handed you that 2024 Bass Nation Champion Trophy.
Oh man, it's awesome. It wasn't a win just for me; it was a family win. It's anyone knows us. It's we're all fishermen. We it's just a love and passion that we all have, and they wouldn't have missed it for the world, especially going into the final day, having a chance. So having them there though, that's just extra motivation too. And then that's just for everyone. Don't want to suck for all the people back home watching, because the amount of people and support that I have, it really is incredible too. And there's people that never even keep up with bass fishing, who may never even caught a bass, and they're over there pulling for me and watching all the weigh-ins and stuff and all that. That just, man, it's bittersweet. It really is.
We're gonna take our first break of the show. When we come back, I mean, we're talking Matty Wong, Caleb Summerall, Ike, Brandon Polinick, Paul Mueller, Will Davis. You're joining and I know I left some of the guys out. I apologize on that. Those are just off the top of my head. But historically, the Bass Nation champion goes to the Elite Series, and this year with the no entry fees, a lot you're kind of like that dog that caught his tail. It kind of the vibe I get, to where you're like, okay, yeah, now we got to figure out what's going on. So I want to take a break, and when I get into it, I want to dive into, I mean, you've got an elite, you're obviously in the classic, you got an Elite Series invite on the table. I want to talk about what you've got sponsorship wise, job wise, life, career. What are we looking at here? Because it's November 11th, and the season like kicks off here pretty soon down
very
in Florida
fast.
for the Elite Series. Also want to wish everybody I don't think you wish people a happy Veterans Day, but I also want to let everybody know thank you to all of our veterans, honor our veterans on Veterans Day today too, which is the 11th. It's also I think the day that like the Edmund Fitzgerald sunk. You remember that song?
Yeah.
Back in the 70s. That was either yesterday or today. The only reason I know that is because of Travis Manson. But we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to dive into all of that. It is BTL on a Monday with the 2024 Bass Nation champion. I feel like they need to say it's a national championship.
Yeah.
Like they say the Bass Nation championship, it needs to be the Bass Nation national championship. Like throw that in there. Just let them know, because basically you've got all of the Bass Nation guys from all around that fish regionals that finish in the top of their states. They went down to Grand, started out of thousands and thousands of very talented anglers, whittle it down to the national champion. And like, you are the one, like out of the entire Bass Nation, you're the representative.
Actually, on day 2, I had my co-owner was from Portuguese. He actually didn't even speak any English at all.
Did he catch Eddie?
No.
Yeah.
He did have 4 on day 1, so
he probably cashed a check still.
Yeah, I think so. That was pretty cool though, seeing international guy fish out of the back of the boat.
Yeah, that's a long way to come fish Grand when it's that tough.
Yes.
BTL with Blake CAPPS. We'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
This is Gamakatsu's new Nano Alpha line of hooks. If it looks familiar, that's because they are. It's the same shapes and sizes in the round bend and the EWG and in the new Horizon head that you know and love from Gamakatsu, but there are a couple new features with this Nano Alpha, which is this little green label that you see on the packaging. First off, 2 times faster hook penetration. That's because of the Nano Alpha smooth coating on it, and also it is 4 times more corrosion resistant. Check it out, Nano Alpha.
I've been using Sunline Shooter for the majority of my career. Millions of dollars made, lots of bass caught, and the gnarly, gnarly stuff. If you need a abrasion resistant, tough fishing line for the really, really mean stuff, Sunline Shooter is for you.
Beatdown is efficient.
Rock solid.
100% American made.
This thing is super tough. I mean, this thing is not going anywhere.
I've ran the Beatdown double stack from Florida all the way up to New York. And the one thing that I know is when I get to my fishing destination, I never have to worry about issues with my graph mount.
Your options are endless with these mounts, but they're steady, they're solid. These are the most reliable mounts on the market, and you can't go wrong with the Beatdown.
When you're ready to hit the water, Denali Fishing has you covered. Regardless of your skill level, from beginner all the way up to tournament pro, Denali has rods, reels, and tungsten to get the job done. Check them out at denalifishing.com. All right, welcome back. BTL on a Monday, talking with Blake CAPPS, who is you're 28 now?
Yep, 28.
28. And you, are you fishing the Elite Series? Are you not? Have you not decided? Like, what is, so you win. Let's just go with that, right? So, like, what is it like now? Because now you're in the Classic. You have all sorts of off limits that immediately take place. You have to decide whether you're in the Elite Series. You've got big checks. Like, what is Monday? This happened, 3 days ago?
Yeah.
4 days ago? What has it been like for the last 72 hours, and kind of just where do you stand as far as, well, you have anything sorted out yet?
No, not really. A couple weeks ago, coming up, or not just a couple weeks ago, but all the way up to this event, you're thinking, and what would I do if I win this thing? And then, all these thoughts go through your mind. You do this, you do that. Well, then we somehow pull off the win. And now these questions that I'm having are actually reality I got to come up with. I haven't officially, but I'll say it here officially. I'm going to take the Bassmaster Elites invite. I think I would absolutely hate myself that I did not take it. I may go out there and get my teeth kicked in, but we're going to definitely go out there and give it our all. And it won't be from a lack of hard work anyways, I could say that. But yeah, man, it's all been just it's just been crazy to even put into words the last 72 hours of what's been going on and stuff. And it still, like I said earlier, it still does not feel real.
I'm doing this for those who aren't familiar. Like, you're not new to tournament fishing at all. You've been doing this. Like, when did you start tournament fishing? Like,
oh gosh,
I mean, you've been doing it since I've been in Oklahoma.
Yeah,
as
far as Dad's sitting right here next to me, but back in Fishing Pal days,
Yeah. Fishing Pals, would you agree, is probably across the country, I don't know if it still is, but one of the best and most impactful youth tournaments series across the country that has really developed a lot of guys in Oklahoma that are in their 20s, 30s now that are absolutely dominating. And it all goes back to those Fishing Pals. Yeah. Fishing Pals is the deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was the deal. Absolutely. Then we had, I don't know if you remember it, but there used to be the Rising Stars. That there's another series that Oklahoma
I remember when I was with B.A.S.S, I would have to put in all the schedules. So that's how I remember all the names of them.
Yeah. The Rising Stars, that was another youth event. And then it even transpired to high school fishing. And I got to do the high school fishing. And actually back in 2023, I won the state championship on Grand Lake. So I didn't know if you even knew that one.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I won a Toyota series last year.
Yeah.
Out there.
So
and have you won a Nichols yet?
No, we've had a few top fives. I haven't fished a whole lot of Nichols. I've only fished I don't know if I fished 7 Nichols before, but I know we've had I think three top fives that I know of in the last 2 years, but can't quite get one of those won yet.
Yeah. But I mean, like, just as far as like tournament fishing, so like if you look up your bass stats, like, you haven't fished opens before.
No.
So you don't have any of that. But over on the MLF side, you have over $100,000 in earnings. You fished the BFLs as a boater for the past 8 years.
Yeah.
You fished Toyota Series championships. You won the in 2023. You won on Grand, the Plains Division. Like, I mean, you finished 7th in this last regional, go to the All-American.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're a local dude who hasn't been around, who hasn't traveled, who hasn't broken down new lakes. Like, you're comfortable on the front deck of a bass.
Yes, absolutely. And the amount of work that I put in over the years too, to be here. I mean, it's everything has come up to this moment anyways that it's one of those deals where I come from, blue collar, hard working family, and
work a full-time job.
Married,
kids?
No, I'm single,
Okay.
no kids. That's another reason makes the decision a little bit easier. It's the way the EQs and the opens are. I would, it's always been a dream to be a Bassmaster Elite, or that's just, it even sounds wild just saying that out loud still. But, it's always been the dream.
Yeah.
But it's always been so, I having to quit the job to even go attempt to try to make it. And it's one of those things I didn't know it would ever even be possible to be able to go fish, 9 events to try to qualify for the elites and stuff like that. So that's one reason I have not had a whole lot of bass events under my belt. The Bass Nations, man, I can't tell people enough that you need to look into your state and figure out what they got to qualify for the state series to, then to qualify through the regionals. That is truly the grassroots working man's way to make a dream come true. And like I said, I'm living proof of that right now.
You mentioned the job wise, you work at a power plant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's that? Like, I mean, are you on like 2 weeks of vacation? You got a cool boss that's like, dude, you're a freaking professional fisherman now. Like, we can work around this. Like, what's the status on that?
Well, it's a shift work. It's a crazy schedule, work days, nights. I'm all over the board with that. And, it has its pros and cons for tournament fishing. I can, a lot of times I can practice during the week when people are working. But on the flip side, I work most of the weekends or people are fishing. Yeah. With that situation coming up, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. We're going to put all the, we're going to work as hard as we can for the bass next year. And, I'm going to have to step away from the power plant industry.
It's like the full professional bass fishing deal where you're taking like a secure job and you're chasing the dream because everything feels right and you don't want to regret it.
Yeah, it's a great job that I'm walking away from that a lot of people would, do a lot of stuff to have the job that I have and, blessed to have that right now. But like I said, at the end of the day, it was 10 years later or just even 2 years later, if I don't make it, and I got to go back to work, so be it. If I didn't take it in 10 years, I could, that thought in the back of my head, that what if moment.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that Bass has taken a beating by a lot of the anglers over the no entry fees this year. I mean, that's like a massive blessing for you.
Yeah.
Because you get the winning, but I mean, that 45 grand of that would have then gone.
Yes. It's, and I didn't even know it, Matt, until the weigh-in, because originally it was supposed to be a 30,000.
Yeah, I was wondering what they were going to do, and I was like, you know what? I hope I have to deal with that situation, but you're the one.
Yeah, so they actually put an extra 20,000 on top of that.
Okay,
and so it was actually a $50,000 win.
I commend Bass for that.
Yes, and like I said, I didn't see any email of them saying that.
No, they didn't. I don't think they had to do that.
And so
they easily could have just said, hey, there's no entry fees. We're going to cover your entry fees for it. Now, it was what, 45,000 for the entry fees is what it said.
Yes,
but to throw the 20,000 cash on top of that and give you 50.
Yeah.
Well done on Bass.
Yep, absolutely. And hats off to them for that. And, I'm hoping to, be able to take that win and, and help financially, for next year and whatnot. Next day, I didn't expect that that was kind of unexpected, but then they had the no entry fees. So I guess I'll be guaranteed 2 years. I don't know what next year is going to hold though. So I got 1,000 questions myself that I'm still unsure
Sponsorship wise, I know you have some sponsors on your shirt. Talk a little bit about those. Like I said, you're well known. Your whole family's kind of well known around here regionally, but do you have anything that's translated into, like, do you have a title sponsor? Do you know what boat you're going to run? Do you have any of that stuff? Or
there's I've been with Phoenix for day one. I'll just straight up say with Phoenix, and I'm the Bass Nation winner gets a boat to run for 1 year. And I didn't know this till Will Davis Jr. was telling me, you kind of have that option, but it's all can be discussed. And there's some things being in the works that I don't know what I'm going to be in next year, but I have
a feeling Gary will take care of you. Gary's a good dude, man. He's been around. He's a derby guy.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, like I said, that's kind of an unknown type of deal. But
baits, anything like line, rods, reels. You mentioned Falcon.
Falcon. Falcon's been like one of the companies that's been there since day one. They've, me and my brother, we've always, going back to when Cody Fisher was one of the reps for them, and
they're Oklahoma-based company.
Yeah, and an Oklahoma-based company, and if we ever needed anything, they would send it stuff to us or go up to Tulsa, and they definitely those guys. I want to take care. Those are your day one people. I want to make sure I can represent them regardless. But other than that, there's so many things that are still like in the works and stuff that I got to figure out.
You got any calls yet? Like, you don't have to mention who they are.
Yeah, I've had calls.
You had where they're like, hey, like, we might be interested in helping you out here?
Yep. And so that's I'm like, gosh, this hasn't even been 72 hours yet. And
well, guys, want to jump in on that?
Yeah. So, getting people that. So I actually fished a tournament yesterday, and
Lauder and Pitts. It's like a 600 boat. How many did they end up having?
I don't know. There was a lot.
They
of
do it
boats.
every November. It's a law firm, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
out of
yeah.
Oklahoma. It's 3 fish limit. You can weigh in your big bass, and then like if you're in the top 5, they put you in like a car and they drive you down to the police station and polygraph you.
Yeah,
and then the winner gets like what, 20 grand, and then big bass is like $5,000 or something, like 10 grand, and then it pays 1,000 down to 30. It's a rite of passage in Oklahoma tournament fishing to fish Lauder Pits.
Yep, absolutely, and it's the entry fee is pretty low, and it's a cool deal. It really is.
Anyway, sorry.
No, I was already signed up for it before I even won this event, and anyways, I ended up fishing that yesterday. I'll tell you what, I didn't care to be there. I'll just straight up say I didn't care. My mind was in 100 different places, and I had phone calls coming in all day, and had a pretty important phone call come in yesterday. I was like, I don't have this number, but I think it's probably an important phone number out of state, and it was someone reaching out.
Yeah.
So
I'll say this in covering this, like a lot of the effective grassroots sponsorships, like if I was a successful like small business owner with clients in Oklahoma or the area, and I had the opportunity to get involved with an angler like that, to where I could use it as kind of a write-off for the sponsorship, help a kid achieve his dream, and at the same time maybe close some deals by, if I have like $1 million deal going down and you're like, oh wait, no, you like bass fishing? Dude, I sponsor the national champion, right? He's right here in Oklahoma. Let me give you his number. I'll take him out there for you. Like, to close those deals, I know a lot of regional and national guys who that's where the nut is for them, because they're very valuable to those small companies. You're helping someone out that's local, but you're also helping their business out too. And it's like kind of a symbiotic relationship. Like, that's where I think the sweet spot is for someone in your position with a good reputation, who can catch fish. Who knows what your income level is going to be for the next year. If you can like throw some of those, a little bit of like the guide, represent a local company like that or a regional company, and then still have the national endemics or non-endemics that are on that in addition to, I think that's where the sweet spot is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope I can get into relationships with some of those people and be able to build up something like that.
And it's big because you got 2 years, man.
Yeah, 2 years, and a lot can change in 2 years.
Have you looked at the schedule? Like, I know 10 killers on there. Like, would you say, like, if you were to pick one fishery that's like your jam, like it's 10 killer, isn't it?
Yeah, 100% 10 killer. That's the lake that I don't hardly deer hunt or nothing anymore. I used to hunt quite a bit. I'm so much into fishing where after all our tournaments, for the most part, end in October. Actually, Matt, this is November. This tournament was the first time I've ever been on Grand Lake in November.
Yeah, I had heard that because when I was going through the list, I was talking with Austin Cranford, who I fish with, and he's like, and he goes, Blake he's got that thing dialed in just about as good as anybody right now. And he goes, but I don't know if he's ever fished him out there that late in the fall.
Yeah. And so that was a big unknown to me. But what I was getting at on that is like, never been on Grand in November. From November to pretty much my first tournament in, February, March, whenever the tournament season starts, all my time's on 10 kilo. That's where I go at, growing up all in high school, college, every weekend in the wintertime, we'd be fishing the winter jackpots with my brother.
You're going to have to mix it up though now, because you can't throw an A-rig on the Elite Series. You're going to have to.
Yeah. That's fine too.
You remember when Jason went out there in that winter series before he went and he won the classic on Hartwell? He'd show up every week.
Yep.
And then he would, like, this is no joke, he would like, BS with everybody because everybody knows he's there. And then everyone would take off and then he would go do whatever he did. He didn't want people seeing him. And he was going down lake learning how to do what he won the classic on.
Yep, absolutely.
And he did it every single week. He'd show up, and I mean, everyone enjoyed getting their ass kicked by Jason Christie for a win.
Absolutely.
Remember that? Like, he'd come in with 23, 24 pounds.
Yeah, it's actually it was that year. Funny you said that. You know, Jason's always kind of been one of those mentors. I mean, I always looked up to Jason.
Yeah.
You know, he just the way he's always carried
He's never
himself.
been nice to me.
He's never been nice.
I think he knows that he's in my head.
Yeah.
And he just like,
yeah,
you know, he'll just give me a look.
He's just an intimidating figure.
Yes, Mr. Christie.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's actually he probably don't even realize it. But that New Year's, I think he went and won it.
Yep.
We won the New Year's jackpot. And he came in second, and they had the next week. Then he won it. Then we came in second. I was like, all right, well, we're even there. So then the third week he went and won it again, and we were way down the list.
That's wild. Yeah, there's a couple of really good dudes now. I mean, it's crazy. You don't think of 10 Killer as like a hotbed but if you do think about it, like that's a really good learning lake.
Oh yeah,
like
absolutely.
The way it fluctuates it's got all 3 different species in it, and you can do whatever the heck you want on it.
You can run up the river, you can flip, you can go down by the dam and fish super deep as you want to fish.
Yeah.
It is definitely a good learning lake. But I will say I can't in June, that's a little curveball right there. I don't fish 10 Killer in June because I'm sure you've been out there in June. 10 Killer is a big party lake, and it gets very, very rough out there. And, you know, trying to fish off the bank when there's giant boats running back and forth, it's tough because it's a small lake. A lot of people who haven't been on 10 Killer, it's not a big lake for an elite series to be there.
Couple more questions and I'll let you go. I know you guys are busy. I really appreciate you guys coming down and doing this on BTL today. If you describe yourself as an angler, we've seen an influx of, well, I mean, quite frankly, you're like an older Elite Series rookie. I think the last 2 years, like John Garrett and Ben Milliken, I think Garrett's 28 as well, but a lot of electronics, a lot of the scoping, the minnow, the Nico, the drop shot across it. Like, what is your strengths? How would you describe yourself as an angler, and like what are your go-tos?
That's funny you asked that question. Me and Chris Jones was talking the other night, and I was telling him, man, I feel like I'm the last of like the dying breed right now. So I'm that, you know, I grew up with all these call them old timers, and you know, fishing shallow water, flipping and pitching and stuff. That's definitely my strength. Now I've also, you know, I scope too. I'm not going to tell you that I don't scope, but you know, bread and butter is shallow water fishing. But I still have a lot to learn. I'm not much of the minnow fisherman, and you know, chasing a single fish around. I got to learn all that stuff, of course. Trying to, you know, if we're going to compete, we're going to have to learn every little trick in the book that we can. But yeah, if you want to describe me, it's definitely a shallow guy fishing, flipping, pitching, and that's just what I love to do. Seeing how accurate you can throw a bait, you know, trying to put it. I remember years ago we were fishing a tournament. I don't know if it was a Fishing Pals or Rising Stars. It was something like that. But the water was up in the bushes at Fort Gibson, and I'd be up there flipping, and I wouldn't hit the tree, and Dad would getting mad at me. He's like, "You need to reel that in and make sure you hit the tree." And you know, and I remember that stuff, and you know, my whole life I've remembered little things like that. And so, I mean, that even goes back to this weekend where we pulled this win off when I'm trying to make a cast behind a dock. If I didn't hit right where I wanted to hit, I was getting frustrated at myself, and I'd have to, you know, that's definitely my strength right there.
If people want to follow you on your journey, YouTube channel, Instagram, Faith, like what are we working at social media wise right now, and where can they follow you?
Yeah, on Instagram and Facebook's really what I have right now. I think we're about to give that a little facelift because I definitely need to do a facelift. I'm not one of the social media guys. You know, that's kind of there's that stuff I got to get better with too. You know, there's this day and age, there's so many people who, you know, that's how they make their living too. Fishing is off social media. And so 2025, there's definitely going to be a lot of changes. And like I said, there's a lot of things that going to be coming.
All right. Speaking of which, I'll just do this right now. So I got a call from AFTCO a couple weeks ago, and they wanted to run a contest through BTL. And I said, yeah, I'm not good at sending stuff out. Can you guys do it? So it is a Reaper package. So it's the Reaper jacket, the sweatshirt, and then like a bunch of hybrid stuff. It's like hundreds of dollars. I have a picture of it right here. Let me pull this picture up. There it is right now. So that is running today for the next 7 days, I believe, through the 18th with BTL. It's three garments, a full bundle. The Reaper bundle is what they're calling it. The link is in the YouTube show, and you can sign up for it. And just like full transparency. So here's the trade-off. If you win, you will get it, but you have to put your phone number and email in to register. They've done that before. That's like kind of the thing that it goes with. So like here, I'll show it. I'll share the screen on what it looks like. There it is right there. Boom. But big supporters of BTL have been going into the winter. If you don't have the Reaper stuff, it is the deal when it comes to cold weather gear. I actually was able to give Hellabass Rich Lindgren his new AFTCO gloves, which I wore, by the way. Phenomenal. Absolutely love them. So that link, like I said, is in the YouTube description. And that I'll be talking about that all week as we do shows with Matt Steffen. So there's sponsorship on there. See, I don't win the tournament, so I have to get paid to talk about the other stuff. So anything else you want to get in here? Any thanks? Anything that you thought was important? Like I said, I know Muskogee's a little over an hour away. Greatly appreciate you and your dad coming down to the BTL studio to talk about it, to bring the trophy in, and to really dive into how the 2024 Bass Nation Championship was won.
And I sure appreciate you having us on here.
All right, let me pull some music up. We'll end it. You guys got to bounce. I'm going fishing.
Yeah.
Matt, Steffen, and I. So here's what we're doing, folks. For the next 5 days, Matt left Wisconsin. We were talking about this In Fisherman Quest, the In Fisherman Master Angler Awards. You ever heard of those? So I grew up in Illinois in the Midwest. So the Master Angler Awards, where they have like all the list of fish, right? And it's largemouth, smallmouth, and it's broken into region. And then if you catch a 10-pounder or 24-incher, whether it's keep or catch and release, depending on the species, you can record it. You have to send it in. You get a Master Angler patch. Then at the end of the year, they put it in the In Fisherman Master Angler Award. So like growing up in the Midwest Outdoors In Fisherman, I was obsessed with, I got to catch, is it a like I'd hook a big one. I'd be like, this could be a Master Angler. This could be a Master Angler. I like measure it and all that. So,
is drum on there? I can do good on
drum. Is not on.
No, okay.
Hybrids are though.
Hybrids,
do you think some of those hybrids at Grand are 10 pounds?
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I think it'd be pretty easy to go catch a 10-pound hybrid right now, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's I don't know where all these hybrids keep coming from in Grand Lake. But
well, they stocked them in there for
everywhere,
recreational, and anyway.
Yeah,
it's I don't think it's had an impact yet. It's displaced some bass.
It's definitely, yeah. There's people who
we need to chat afterwards, because I think the Master Angler is, I think it's a 24-inch or a 10-pound hybrid, 26-inch or a 10-pound hybrid. And I told Steffen, I was like, dude, we could like knock that out. Like, I know the one I caught was like at least 10 pounds.
Yeah, absolutely. When they show up, they're
you
thousands.
Probably know some of the areas where they're more historically
yes.
to show up, because I went to one spot 3 times and twice there's nothing there. And like I said, it was like Lollapalooza the third time I showed up. It was tens of thousands. So anyway, they have all these different species. And then we had Thomas Allen from In Fisherman on. So we're actually doing like a series where we're trying to catch as many different master angler species as we can. So in the next 5 days, we're going for a crappie, a sauger, a sawguy, a hybrid striper, a blue cat, a flathead, a largemouth, a spot, and a smallmouth. And we're going to try to catch master angler length and species of all those.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
And then we're going to do shows every night. Matt's going to do videos about it that are going to go out on his channel. And we're going to kind of document the whole thing and then come out with a series of videos.
Can you use live bait?
We use whatever we want. It's In Fisherman, right?
Yeah.
So if we want to back troll spinner baits in strong current, like that's right up the In Fisherman alley. If we want to, tail hook chubs in river holes, like
that's my kind of fishing right there.
Can you help me with any of those around here?
Yeah. We live around on the Arkansas River.
This time of year.
Yeah.
It's not blown out right now.
Well, yeah,
It's probably
it
a
is probably
disaster
blown.
right
Yeah,
now.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, it is
No.
rolling.
I know there was one year the Arkansas something happened and like one of my buddies was catching like 8 to 10 pound walleye out of there.
Yeah,
And it was shocking. Like he'd be like, I don't know why, but like this hole is like all 10-pound walleye, and he'd be holding them up and they looked like they were just straight out of Canada.
yeah, they're getting pretty common too there.
Really?
Yeah, I've never caught no big ones, but I know I made like 7 or 8 trips to the river this year, and I know I caught a walleye every time.
Yeah. All right.
I'll have to show you some videos of some catfish too.
Yeah, no, I'm all in on that too. Also want to give a shout out. Sammy H talked about, he said Hayden on this week, talking about Hayden Marbut, who just won the Toyota series on Wheeler Lake, took place at the same time of this. And I kept saying, dude, like that's a familiar name. Like, how do I know Hayden Marbut? And then I remember I had who did I just have on? I'm swearing, dude, you hit 40. And he made the Elite Series, not Parker. What's his name? I gotta look it up now.
Did I read he had a family reunion that same day of that? I was reading the MLF. Did he have a family reunion the same day he won?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
20 here. Dude, I know the guy. I had him on the show last week. Why? Tucker Smith. Yes, thank you, John Stewart. I wanted to kept saying Tucker, but I couldn't do that last name. So Tucker Smith, when he won all of his national championships and all that, Hayden Marbut was his team partner.
Oh, okay.
For that. So pretty much like there's like a and then the guy who finished second to you, Connor Jacobs.
Yep.
I think he's an Auburn dude, isn't he?
Yeah,
He just is from Auburn. He's a 24-year-old. So he's in the Classic.
That dude's a stick.
Tucker's in the Elite Series. Hayden just wins the Toyota Series champ. Like there's a whole group, and then you know that like Jordan Lee's just sitting back being like, "That's right,
yeah,
that's right. I started all this. Me and Matt started all this." So, all right, that's all we got for today. Blake Capps, thanks for jumping on. Tomorrow's show, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. Matt, Stefan, and I will kind of go over what our game plan is for this quest. Also, I haven't had a chance to talk about it. We'll talk about it with Matt more. You probably have some perspective on this. Clark Wendlandt, 2020 Bassmaster Angler of the Year, 3-time FLW Angler of the Year, announced his retirement from the Elite Series. So you don't have to worry about beating Clark Wendlandt next year. Only a bunch of 23-year-olds.
A bunch of 23-year-olds, yeah.
All right, this has been another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live. Tomorrow evening, check out BassZone.com, BassTalkLive.com for a schedule on when we'll actually be live. So that's all we got. We'll see you tomorrow, Tuesday. Later.